We are recording now. Okay, we've got half a minute to go. She's early.
Do I have to behave? Is that why you
Yeah,
said that?
I looked right at you, didn't I? Ready? Okay. This meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. The board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Nye.
Here.
Mr. Cyan.
Here.
Mr. Haber.
Here.
Mr. Halpin. Mr. Shekels.
Here. Thank you for coming to this meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware that this meeting is audio and video taped and may be carried live on television. First, I'll outline our procedures. A summary of the appeal is presented by the staff. Then the appellant will present its case. The board members may then ask questions of the appellant. After that, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being recognized by the chairman. Then those persons when that person supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify and or ask questions of the board after being recognized by the chairman. All persons wishing to testify, whether for or against an appeal, may only do so after being sworn in. When testifying, each person must come forward to the podium after being recognized, speak into the microphone, and state their name, address, and any affiliation of the case. All persons testifying will be limited to 4 minutes unless a board member requests additional time. All testimony is given to the board only. No comments or questions are to be directed to the appellant or anyone else in the audience. The board will only hear new, non-repetitive evidence or questions. Should someone wish to show support of previous testimony, they may do so by following the testimony procedures and stating their support of previous testimony. Now, will all persons who may give testimony this evening please stand. Raise your right hand. And swear or affirm. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No changes.
Hearing none, if there are no objections from the board, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. Are there any changes to the minutes from the previous meeting? Hearing none, if there are no objections to the board, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Please read the staff summary for case BZA 31-2022.
Case 31, 2022, BZA. The applicant is Melissa and John Adkins, who are the property owners. The location is at 304 Bishop's Bridge Drive. It is zoned as a AA residence. The request is for a variance to allow a 16 by 22 foot addition, which is a covered porch in the rear yard area with a 46 feet 9-inch rear yard setback, where a 60-foot rear yard setback is required for the property located at 304 Bishop's Bridge Drive, per Article 3.1 D2C of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. The proposed development, the applicant is proposing the construction of an addition, covered porch, 16 by 22 feet in the rear yard area with a setback of 46 feet 9 inches, where 60-foot rear yard setback is required. This porch addition would be attached to a new kitchen addition, which does not require a variance. Some history on the home. The home was built in 1992. The current owners purchased the home in 2018 and moved into the home in the spring of 2019. In May of 2022, the home experienced a fire, causing extensive damage on the interior of the home. Now the owners are looking to renovate and reconstruct everything all at once, which includes a new covered porch addition that requires the variance. This home has been vacant since the fire, It should be noted that this addition will be attached to a kitchen addition that will be on the rear of the home as part of the overall renovations to the property. This is a property map of the home. It is on a panhandle lot. The aerial map. And the topography map. This is the current site plan of the home. And these are some floor plans. And finally, an elevation plan. Some pictures of the home. This is the back of the home where the proposed addition will be put. Currently, this is what the conditions of the home look like. This is another angle from atop of the hill that backs up to the back of the home. Some photo of the surrounding woods. This is the driveway up to the garage area. The variance findings: to authorize by the grant of special zoning certificate after public hearing, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall make a finding that the proposed variance is appropriate in the location proposed. The finding shall be based upon the general considerations set forth in Article 2.12 D2B. Staff is of the opinion that the variance would not be substantial. While the house is currently built at a setback of 60 feet, the addition would bring the house to 46 feet 9 inches from the rear of the property line. The property is located on a large plot on a private drive and heavily wooded, so the addition would not be visible to adjacent properties. In addition, there is steep topography to the rear, which faces the Withrow Nature Preserve, which is a Hamilton County Great Parks property. So the covered porch addition would not be visible to any rear neighbor. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered, and the adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The property is on a private drive on a large panhandle lot with few neighbors who can view the house. While the home experienced a fire earlier this year and is undergoing renovations and reconstruction, it is staff's understanding that the only large exterior changes are the kitchen addition, which does not require a variance, and the covered porch addition that will match the character of the rest of the home. The covered porch addition will not alter the character of the neighborhood, nor would it be visible to any neighboring property. The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of government services. The property owner's predicament would not be feasibly obviated through another method other than a variance. The placement and orientation of the home on the lot restricts any further additions onto the rear of the home. The proposed location of the covered porch seems to be the most logical due to the orientation of the home. The spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Staff is of the opinion that due to the property's topography in relation to the private drive, the amount of foliage that surrounds it, as well as it being located off a private drive, the essential character of the neighborhood would not be altered. The majority of the fire-related damage to the home was interior, therefore the character of the exterior would not be lost during reconstruction. The changes to the exterior are the kitchen and covered porch addition to the rear of the house. However, due to the previously stated reasoning, these additions would not create substantial detriment to the neighborhood character. These are the standards to be considered.
Are there any questions from the board?
Do I have it right that it's a 22 or 24-foot porch, but only, roughly half of it requires a variance? In other words, the first 10 or so feet are permitted based on, well, this sketch right here, actually. The line cuts right through where the deck would be, and so only what's above it on this view requires a variance. Is that right?
That's correct. Excuse me, that line represents the setback.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Will the appellant or the appellant's representative please come to the podium, speak your name into the microphone, state your address, any affiliation, and present your appeal.
John Atkins, homeowner.
Okay.
I guess my appeal is I'd like the porch.
Okay, all right. Your address is the
Okay,
same?
304,
What?
yep.
Okay, all right, okay. Anything else you'd like to add to the discussion?
Not particularly.
Okay, all right. Any questions?
Is the design going to be consistent with the design of the existing home?
Yep.
Any further questions from the board? Is there anyone else who would like to speak in support of the appeal? Anyone who'd like to speak in support? Is there any, you want to speak in support? Were you sworn in? Okay, come up to the microphone, I'll swear you in. I got to pull my. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. State your name, address, and your affiliation.
Amy Brokehammer, 8020-8053 Meadow Creek Drive. I'm a resident and also a local real estate agent. I'm familiar with the property.
Okay.
The property backs up to quite, as you can see by the pictures, quite a very wooded area. So it's not going to impede on other neighbors. I don't even think anyone will see it based on the way that the property is tucked so far back in the subdivision, and I think it's not going to harm value around it or near it.
Okay. That's the Withrow Nature Preserve behind it, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I believe it is. Okay. Any further?
No, thank you.
Any questions from the board? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in support of the appeal? Is there anyone who would like to speak against the appeal? Hearing none, and before we go into executive session, I'll explain to the general public here tonight, we can go into executive session and go into another room and deliberate in secret over there, but we choose as a board not to do that, okay? So we'll be having our executive session here. You'll be able to hear us. We can't interact with you without coming in and out formally of executive session. I can't ask you questions. You can't ask me questions, okay? Is there a motion that we can move to executive session?
So moved. Second.
Will you read the roll?
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin? Aye. Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Well, Jeff, would you like to lead off the discussion?
Sure. I would grant the variance. I think the majority of our 7 factors weigh in favor of granting it. The only ones that might not, they purchased the property with knowledge of zoning restrictions. Will the property yield a reasonable return without the variance? Yeah, maybe. I don't think that cuts really strongly in either direction, but it's not a substantial variance in the context of where this lot is. I agree that probably the neighbors won't see it even when the leaves aren't in. The fact that there is a park to the west there means it's unlikely to ever be developed in the future. With the other topography of it, there's not a lot of other options to work with there. It makes sense with how the house is configured. I mean, you could put it in the north of the house and not need a variance, but that doesn't really make sense with the layout of the lot or the interior of the home or the neighborhood. So the essential character won't be altered. It won't affect the delivery of governmental services. And I think the spirit and intent of the zoning requirement would be observed. Substantial justice would be done by granting the variance. So I'm in favor of approving it with our standard conditions consistent with the plans dated November 10th.
Paul, do you have anything?
I would concur with that. I'm in favor.
Steve?
Concur, nothing to add.
Having visited the site, I agree. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, with respect to case 31-2022 BZA, I move that we grant the variance subject to the condition that work be started within 1 year and completed within 2, and that the work substantially comply with the plans received on November 10th.
Second the motion.
Will you call the roll?
Mr. Nye.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Haber.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin. Mr. Shekels.
Aye. The board will make contact, the township will make contact with you and let you know when your paperwork is available, okay? You could welcome to stay and for more fun, or you could go home, which if you'd like. Okay. Will you read the staff report for case,
Do you need to take
Thir-
us out of executive session?
what?
Do you need to take us out?
Oh, yes. Is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
If we call the roll?
Mr. Nye.
Aye.
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Haber.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin. Mr. Shekels.
Aye. We read the staff report for case 32-2022.
The applicant is Coleman 16 LLC, property owners, location 7492 Tower View Lane, zoned B residence. The request is a conditional use request to allow a short-term rental facility for the property located at 7492 Tower View Lane per Article 5.4 I-15 of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Proposed development is to operate a short-term rental in an existing single-family residence. The applicant has not proposed any changes to the exterior of the property. History of the property. On December of 2021, the current property owner purchased the property. On October 6, 2022, the township received a complaint of a fence without a permit and a short-term rental at the property. A violation letter was sent, excuse me, was sent out on October 11th, 2022. Mr. Atkins called on October 18th, 2022 to discuss how to resolve the violations. On October 18th, 2022, the fence contractor for 7492 Tower View Lane came in to apply for a fence permit. On October 19th, 2022, the fence permit was issued for a 4-foot-high, 75% open fence and a 6-foot-high privacy fence in the rear yard. Upon inspection of 7492 Tower View Lane, the 6-foot-high privacy fence comes into the side yard partially on the left-hand side of the property, which does not comply with the zoning certificate that was issued on October 19th, 2022. The applicant has not requested a variance for the 6-foot-tall fence in the side yard. Therefore, it needs to be relocated to the back corner of the house to be brought into compliance. In April 2020, the Anderson Township Board of Trustees adopted text amendments to the zoning resolution, which made short-term rentals a conditional use in single-family residence zoning districts. In 2022, there have been 3 cases for conditional uses for short-term rental facilities, not including cases this month, and all 3 conditional uses were granted. Here is the property map of the location, the star representing the house, aerial, topography map. These are photos of the property. Conditional use findings. To authorize by the grant of special zoning certificate after public hearing, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall make a finding that the proposed conditional use is appropriate in the location proposed. The findings shall be based upon the general considerations set forth in Article 3.3C2, and as well as the designated specific criteria for specific uses contained in Article 5.4 I-15. General considerations in Article 2.12D8. The spirit and intent. The proposed use and development would comply with the spirit and intent of the zoning resolution with district purposes by meeting the conditional use standards. No adverse effect. It is unclear if the proposed short-term rental would have an adverse effect upon adjacent property or public health, safety, or general welfare. The applicant has indicated that the property has limitations on the number of people permitted to stay at the house and no party conditions. Maximum occupancy has not been provided. In addition, the applicants live in Anderson Township. However, it is unclear if they will also be staying in the house while rented out for a short-term rental. Protection of public services. The proposed short-term rental will respect natural, scenic, and historic features of significant public interest. The applicant has not changed the exterior of the existing single-family residence other than the fence. The fence will need to be brought into compliance with the approved zoning certificate. Consistent with adopted township plans. The proposed short-term rental is consistent with Anderson Township zoning resolution, as the existing property is compliant with the height and setback requirements for the property. The conditional use is in accordance with the following areas of the township's comprehensive plan. The project is consistent with the following goal and initiative in the housing chapter in the 2022 comprehensive plan, which states, Anderson Township is a home to diverse housing options to meet challenging demographics and market demands. Encourage the development and redevelopment of a variety of housing styles and densities in appropriate areas of the township. This property is designated for a single-family residential use on the future land map, and staff feels that the short-term rental is consistent with this use classification. Specific criteria in Article 5.4 I-15 F, parking shall not be permitted in the area defined as the front yard setback of the existing zone district. This is compliant. The vehicular area shall be located and designed so as to minimize the impact on the neighborhood. Compliant. Measures shall be taken to minimize the impact of potential nuisances such as noise, odor, vibration, and dust on adjacent properties. Compliant. The applicant has a list of guidelines and restrictions within the rental agreement which all incoming guests are expected to adhere to. The owners do live in the township, and their adult son lives in the house in question. It is unclear if the son and caregiver will remain in the house during rentals. If they do stay in the house, this will also minimize potential nuisances to the adjacent properties. No exterior alterations of existing structures shall be made that depart from the residential character of the building. All new structures shall be compatible in the residential design with the surrounding neighborhood. However, an improvement required by code or necessitated by licensing requirements, shall not be deemed incompatible. Compliance. No proposed changes to the existing structure. However, there is a fence that needs to be brought to compliance with the approved zoning certificate. All exterior lighting shall be directed away from adjacent residential properties. Compliant. No changes to lighting proposed. Variance findings. The applicant shall provide a plan indicating the manner in which the facility will maintain contact with neighborhood residents, along with a structured procedure whereby residents' grievances may be filed with the township and resolved by the facility. Compliant. The applicant stated that contact information will be distributed to surrounding neighbors in a 200-foot radius so they contact the property owners on any issues, but it is unclear if this has been done. Meals shall be served only to guests or residents of the facility and not to the general public. Compliant. No meals will be served. An emergency response plan shall be submitted detailing safety measures and response procedures. Compliant. An emergency plan is provided with emergency information. The property is equipped with a fire extinguisher, smoke detectors, and carbon monoxide detectors. Staff recommendation. If approved, staff recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals applies to the condition that the property either be locally owned or have a local property manager to comply with conditions I and V, as well as move the fence to the approved location from permit Z 2022-0534 to bring property into compliance. And these are the standards, list of standards to be considered.
Any questions from the board?
Yes. First, there's not a variance application for the fence, correct?
No.
Second, the report said that the 3 short-term rentals that have been in front of the board this year have all been granted. Is that right? I thought the one on Strathcona was denied. Does anyone?
I believe all 3 have been.
There were
allowed.
conditions. We put conditions.
They were all approved.
We did put conditions on
It wasn't unanimous, if that's what you're.
Okay.
it. Okay.
That's not how I remember it, but okay.
I think it had mostly to do with parking.
And I think it was denied in the straw poll, but it was approved at a later meeting, at the 3rd meeting, because I think it was continued 2 times to the 3rd meeting,
Okay.
and then that's when it was passed.
Okay, fair. Okay. Can you go to the aerial view? We have an aerial view, I think, or maybe we don't. Is there a broader aerial view? Maybe I missed it.
No.
Let me ask you this, whether it's pictured or not. Immediately south of here, the area sort of between Tower View and Mercy, that's going to be developed, right?
Yes, the area between Tower View and the creek that separates. There's Tower View, and then south is there's an old white farmhouse there with a barn garage. That property is going to be developed into single-family subdivision.
3 dozen houses or something like that?
Yeah, about 30, it was 35, I think, 35, 36, yes.
Single family?
Single family, yes.
Okay. Can you tell us anything else generally about that proposed development, just to get a
It
sense
was
of the
a,
neighborhood?
it was a zone change because they requested a community unit plan. So the homes are going to be clustered. Only half of the property is being developed, and then the other half will remain open space. It would be open space as part of the community unit plan, but that's kind of where the creek is. So the homes will be focused more on the flat surface, closer to Tower View, and then the undeveloped portion will be the creek.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yep.
Paul?
No questions.
Steve?
There seemed to be quite a bit of lack of clarity in, maybe these questions for the appellant. I think Mr. Nye did talk about the fence being being non-compliant, but there not being any plan for resolution there. Under no adverse effect, it's unclear if the proposed short-term rental would have an adverse effect upon adjacent property. So there's some things that I think that, at least from my understanding from staff's point of view, is that aren't clear.
If I can say one thing about when the staff report was written, since then, I have been in contact with the fence contractor who said he would move the fence into compliance,
Okay.
if that's helpful.
There's some lack of clarity if the son and the caregiver are going to remain in the house. I think regarding the item V, the applicant shall provide a plan indicating the manner. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is are we here to hear testimony about how the appellant is going to resolve these issues, or are these issues that shall be a part of the application process or something? This being new, I'm not quite sure. And so I'm kind of general on that right now. Regarding parking, it says parking should not be permitted in the area defined as the front yard setback. And in the appellant's house rules, parking's available in the garage or on the driveway only, no on-street parking. So I'm lacking clarity on what is required versus what the appellant has been, may testify tonight. So I think I've got a bunch of questions right now that may be answered as we continue in this case.
Well, if I could, tying into yours, if I could add a question, staff, is parking part of the original zoning resolution as it pertains to these?
It was a condition. It's condition number, or letter F. Parking shall not be permitted in the area defined as the front yard setback of the existing zoning district. The applicant did state that parking was available in the garage. The driveways, it's a front entry garage, so it's one of those standards. If you feel that, if you do choose to approve the short-term rental and you approve or feel like a variance is needed, I would suggest that you just clarify that, because, this is a driveway that goes into the front entry garage. They're not creating a separate parking area in the front
Right.
yard. So we did not think it needed a variance, but
That-
if you feel
that's
more
good.
comfortable clarifying it, if you choose to approve it, we certainly can.
And by front yard setback, are you talking about the setback or the front yard? When you say setback, that applies to me if it's a 50-foot right-of-way, it's 25 feet or 12 and a half feet from the curb that you could park. After that point,
Correct.
you're on
And
your
this
property.
is-
That's only the right-of-way.
Well,
Then you have a setback from the right-of-way.
well, that's what I'm asking. is-
Right, this is the B zoning district, so the front yard setbacks from the right-of-way, it's 35 feet.
35 feet. So it's 35 feet from the right-of-way, which is 12 and a half feet from the curb. So if you go back,
35 feet from the right of way or 35 feet from the center?
no, he said from the right-of-way, right?
35 feet from the right-of-way.
And it's a 50-foot right-of-way, and you split that, and that street is probably 25 feet curb to curb, which is typical, which means 12 and a half feet
Oh, no,
from the
it's
curb.
probably not 25
Chris, if you want to put up
feet
the
curb to
Cages
curb.
map, it'll show.
Pardon?
Chris is going to put up the Cages map, so it shows the right-of-way.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, my property line, my
So-
right-of-way extends into my yard.
Right, so that blue, when we do a front yard setback, we measure from the right-of-way, which is going to be that blue line. So
Okay.
a house could be constructed outside of 35 feet from that
Okay.
blue line.
Which would be what I would be the required front yard setback.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to define as a setback.
So
Okay.
the question is the driveway in the front yard setback? That's the question.
Well, is the
And it
park?
looks like it is.
Yeah, but no, what I'm asking is, okay, if that's the right-of-way, okay, then we go back 35 feet from the right-of-way, and that's where they can start parking.
Okay.
Which
Okay.
looks like you could park in the garage and not the driveway.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Well, I'd have to go out and tape it off, but they could potentially have two cars in the garage outside the garage without me actually going out with a tape.
And yeah, I wouldn't get
Define-
too hung up on that because, this is a single-family home. You're going to use their driveway for your parking in a single-family home. If you do choose to approve the short-term rental, and if you don't feel comfortable with that language, I would just put a variance for that,
Yeah,
for that
okay.
letter.
I just tried to find where the line is from a.
I think the intent of that was that no additional parking was created in the front yard for short-term rentals.
Okay, so they're not
So
sitting
it
out in the
doesn't look
grass.
out of characteristics of a single-family home.
Right, okay, I'm good. Steve, anything further?
No, thank you.
John?
No question.
I have one more for staff. Maximum occupancy, is that listed anywhere in the zoning resolution? It's not addressed? No. Okay, that's what I want to know, because if there is none, then there is none. Okay. Okay. Now, will the appellant or the appellant's representative come to the podium? State your name, address, and your affiliation with the case, and present your appeal.
So, my name's Brandon Atkins. I'm at 6932 Turpin View Drive, Cincinnati 45244. I want to first start with Lauren and thank her for trying to get me through this process here. It was a long road here, but my brother Lance and my sister Jamie run a local family business here, which my father started nearly 45 years ago, Beachmont Racquet Club. So we are in the area. My parents, my brother, my sister, and I all live in Anderson Township. My siblings and I all had children, a girl and then a boy, in that order. All of our kids came through the Forest Hill School District, as did we. I've moved 4 times in a 3-mile radius and consider Anderson my permanent home. I met my wife Brittany at Turpin High School my senior year when she moved in from St. Louis. We have a daughter, Peyton, who's 25, and our son, Cole, who is 24. Our son, Cole, has autism. He's nonverbal and communicates with a letterboard. Cole's a good-looking, pleasant young man. He understands everything, but will need supervision the rest of his life and is dependent on us. We've had several awesome workers over the years, but as Cole's grown up, it's become more awkward for us. If we have a staffer at our house, we feel like we have to leave the house. If we leave and come back, we feel like we're overlooking her shoulder. So a year ago, my wife said it's time for us to live our life. So, in the most expensive housing market in the history of man, she decided that she was going to go out and pursue a house. So that's what we're talking about here, 7492 Tower View Lane. And we got this house for our son. Excuse me. So,
Take your time. Take your time.
So over the winter, we started to fill the house with furniture and do some different things that we wanted to be done. My wife's relatives came into town, they stayed at the house. And so the plan was for her to stay there one night a week, me to stay there one night a week, and then one weekend a month we have help, and we live like the rest of the population. So anyways, at some point, my realtor, he knows my situation. He said, you should list this house on Airbnb. And I thought, yeah, I don't know, that sounds like a good idea. So the first thing I did was just Googled Airbnb Anderson Township, and up jumped dozens and dozens of listings, and I thought, well, all right. So I took the photos and said, we're going to list the house and see what happens. And so in that time, I probably had, I don't know, maybe 8 renters from various things. They've had people come in that have family in town, and you can imagine if you're coming in for Thanksgiving or Christmas and you had kids, you'd rather stay at a house than a hotel when your kids are in a bed next to you. Or we've had some people come in for a Bengals game. We've had people come in for a wedding reception. And so that's how this started. And so it wasn't until I got a letter from the county that I knew that you couldn't do it, which seems a little naive on my end, I guess, but I have a VRBO property in Florida that we've done for 8 to 10 years, and I've never had to go through this, so I just didn't know any better. But that's my situation. This, we're hoping, is his home.
You need some
And
more
as
time.
we get help, it will become his home.
You good with?
Sure.
Okay. You take all the time you need, compose, and take what time you need.
I'm good.
Okay.
I mean, it's the plan that we get help. He's in there. That's his house. I drive by the property to work on the way home from work. So we bought it in Anderson, paying more money, but I want it convenient to see him.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Are there any questions from the board?
On the short-term rentals,
Yeah, I wanted to finish that, sorry.
Okay.
So, there were questions on here. I mean, from what I see, we have it stated that the maximum occupancy is 6 people. It's a 3-bedroom. I mean, the site in question is right across the street from Clough Church, which is where all the kids sled ride, and, just a block and a half away. It's unclear. No, my family will not be in there with the rental.
so your son where will he be?
He'll be with us at our house.
Okay,
So I live right by Turpin High School. Like I said, I pass it on the way to work. So what was the other question? That was it, I think.
Oh, the contact have you distributed the
Well,
contact?
I stopped by the neighbors and just threw a note in the mailboxes that just said who I am and what I'm doing, and here's my contact information, and you know, that's what I did. While I understand some apprehension, I think that you know, if I found out my neighbor was doing an Airbnb, my first thought would be, oh, damn, they're going to have parties and it's going to be loud and it's going to be a mess. But I can tell you, I mean, a lot of people probably don't do that. But if you've ever done Airbnb or VRBO or even Uber, I mean, it's got a rating system, and you get a negative review, and people aren't going to rent to you. They're not going to pick you up an Uber. And it kind of just takes care of itself, I feel like. But we've put a lot of money into the property already. It's never looked better. My wife isn't happy because she has a second job cleaning it, and now I'm cutting the grass and getting weeds out of it to get it ready. So my current neighbors should be the one complaining, because my house has gone back door to this one here. But so I want to comply with anything and everything I need to, and I feel we have. As far as the fence, I mean, I don't really feel like I'm the guy to speak to it. We hired a fence contractor and said, in the midst of all this, we found out that our neighbor to the left there moves in, and he's got a pit bull of all things. So I suspect what happened. I know the fence guy. He's a member of the club, and I think he jumped me in line and probably wasn't able to go through the permit process as timely as he'd like. As far as the offset, it was like 2 feet off the back of the house. You can see in the one picture, he said evidently his installer ran into some trouble. There was a big rock. He hit the rock. He said, there you go. Said, what's the big deal? It's 18 inches, 2 feet. I'm not sure what it is, but I said, Brian, I'll delay this thing another month if you want to fight it. And he said, I'll just move it. There'll be another application fee, whatever. So that will be moved by year end.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
I'm not quite clear. Your son lives there currently, is that correct?
No, he lives with my wife and I.
Okay, but you're looking this long-term as a residence for him?
That's correct.
And then will you continue the short-term rental then? Or I'm trying to understand how that works out.
Well, we probably need 3 or 4 workers is what it amounts to, and we currently only have 1. So
to take care of him?
That's right.
Okay.
So we need to build our staff, and it'll take some time, and it's hard for us to let go somewhat. But over a period of years, our plan is for him to be here.
Okay. With caregivers there?
That's right.
And this would be his permanent?
Yes.
Thank you. But you don't know when that time frame is?
No.
Okay.
COVID has made it a little more difficult to hire people, and but yes, I mean, if we found someone tomorrow, then we would move in that direction.
Thank you.
Sure.
When did you start listing this on Airbnb?
I'm guessing August.
Any further questions from the board? Any further?
I guess I'm still a little unsure about the parking thing. I mean, is the board just looking that a car doesn't park in front of the home, or?
I
Can
think-
they just park in the street there against my house? Does it have to be in, I wasn't sure what they were getting at. I mean, I'm assuming that anyone would just park in the driveway or the garage because it's closest and convenient.
I'm thinking that the logic might be that people might park in the grass in the front yard.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
And so I think as long as the driveway and the garage are being used, I don't know that that's a problem,
Yeah,
at least not with me.
right.
Right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in support of the appeal? Please come to the podium, give us your name, address.
Start
and
out
your
with, my name is Charlie Wilson.
Okay.
Lived on Towerview for 54 years.
Okay.
Nice neighborhood. Went downhill, as he can tell you over the years.
Can you give us your address, please?
Address?
Please.
Your address?
There are 3 other rentals that we know of on the
Oh,
street.
no, your address.
I'm sorry.
Your address, where
7481.
you live. Okay, yeah.
His house is here and mine's here.
Okay, all right.
We basically were thrown into this. We had no knowledge it was going on.
So what's your address?
7481.
Okay.
I think it's 7492, is that correct?
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Okay.
Okay. We had no idea anything was running. Don't take us off my time. Until a lady came over who was renting the place. My wife and I take very good care of our place and asked us how we felt about it. Felt about what? I'm renting on a short-term basis. We had no knowledge of it. So that was good. It was going on. Nobody knew. The other rentals on the street have caused problems. Okay? I sort of think that we'd be better off for a short time where they could get rid of somebody who wasn't a problem. So, I don't think Mr. Atkins really checked it out too well. Years ago, the first house on the left put up a big old fence right next, and the zoning commission said that fence is okay because that's his side yard. Mr. Atkins is fencing the side yard too, and I don't blame him for putting it there. Okay, so that might be something you consider. I don't really see any problem with it. Some people thought it's going to be a business. Aren't the other 3 houses a business? When you think about it, somebody bought a house to rent, making money off of it. Okay. The only 2 things I object to is I got a letter from the township. Attached in it is Mr. Atkins' letter. I came up here and I said, you know, this is wrong. I was told I didn't understand government. You know, you should send me a notice that this hearing's going to go on, and that's it. Well, like Mr. Atkins said later, he did come around and tell everybody about it. And I say, they kind of forced us into it. I have no objections for anything as long as the house, as the place stays the way it's been. Okay, so there's been no problem whatsoever over there.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Is there any other questions from the board? No, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in support? Okay, please come to the podium. Your name, address, and your affiliation.
Walt Kauscher, 7511 Towerview Lane. Across the street, diagonal across the street from the property. I'm not familiar with the short-term rentals, but I can't ask questions to the board, to you people. I'll try to make, can I?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, I guess my question is, I don't know how this all works, and is there a laws, any kind of parameters that take care of mainly safety and the congestion possible of multiple, I mean, there's a 3-bedroom house, so you could put a lot of people in there, and I don't know if there's a restriction on the amount of people. And short term, does that mean 1 day up to a month or 2 months, I don't know. And
Would one of the staff members like to address those questions? We've already answered the max occupancy. There is
I
no
didn't hear that.
there is no max occupancy.
there's no max. See, I have a little eye problem. I couldn't read up there. And also,
The
if
owner
you-
stated that max occupancy is 6, he would.
Yeah, the owner did, but there's
Yeah.
nothing in the resolution, correct?
Not
That's
in the
my
resolution,
question.
but
There's
there are-
nothing in our resolution. that
There's no
requires-
standard rules
Right.
governing this type of business.
There are rules, and if, would you want to address the the zoning for him and explain it?
So in general, the time frame for short-term rentals is defined as any time that's less than a period of 30 days.
That's, okay, 1 day to 30?
Yes.
I mean, there's not a minimum, like 2 days rental. You can rent one day, okay.
I think that would be up to the property owner at that point to make that determination.
3 days is mine.
3-day minimum. Okay. So I mean, you can, I don't know how you vet that. I don't know how you screen the people. And that's a concern with us, because you know the history of Towerview in the recent years and all of the criminal activity. And it's all, and each time it was with the renters. So we have some concerns. Also, we have young families with small children. In fact, there's a family directly across the street from this property with 3 young children, including a 6-year-old little girl. So we have concerns, because we don't know these people. We don't know. I mean, one bad incident can, and there's nobody there to check. In fact, I guess you can call a neighbor and have them, look over your property when you're not there.
So,
But in today's world, with all the killings and the drugs and that, I mean, I don't know how you control any.
so are you speaking for this application or against this application?
I'm against it. Does it sound like I'm for it? I must be misspeaking.
Okay, yeah, because I called people up who were speaking for it. Okay, but that's fine. Go ahead and finish since you're here, okay? And we'll finish your testimony.
How did I misspeak? I don't understand.
So you're speaking against this?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, that's the
so that
clarification.
wasn't clear.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
Sir, you mentioned there's been crime on Tower View over here. You said there's been crime on Tower View in recent years. Can
Yeah,
you,
serious.
I'm not familiar with any of that. Can you tell us anything more about that?
Well, Charlie knows more about it. He was more closer to but we had, I know we had a fellow that's probably in jail now with an assault with a weapon. And what was the other one, Charlie? Yeah, we had the problems there with the renters, with the. Well, they're asking if you have incidents.
Sir, let's stick with
let's
you
stick-
right now.
yeah.
If Mr. Wilson wants to come back up, we can let him in a minute. But tell me what you know.
Well, I know there was another incident, but I didn't go, I don't remember the details.
Okay.
But there was at least another incident.
So your concerns are that you won't know who's there. You're worried it'll be overcrowded. You're worried that it might bring a criminal element.
It's
Does-
it's not, I don't know how you police that, I don't know how you control that.
So Mr. Atkins
And in
says,
fact, there was a time we saw 3 cars in the driveway, one time we saw some dogs in the backyard. So, and I don't, we have a neighborhood with, small children.
do you have any similar concerns with respect to long-term rentals? Like, let's say, for
I don't
example,
know what, I can't answer that, I don't know what is more,
so Mr. Atkins says that he's going to require renters to be there for a minimum of 3 nights.
3 nights, yeah.
Does that make it less risky to you, in your view, than if they could be there only one
I don't
night?
know if it makes that much difference, I don't know.
would it make a difference if it
One
was?
day, I mean, one day is enough to have, cause a problem. I mean, I'm just saying, with the conditions in the world today, you don't know. You don't know who's, I mean, if you rent it for 3 times a week or so, that's how many people could be in these places. I think Milford, they have a ruling that forbids short-term rentals.
Do you have any additional concerns that you haven't expressed?
Oh, I think that's probably it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Does the board have any more questions of this witness? Okay. Just to clarify that he is against it and that I called him for. Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak in support of this application? Anyone? Is there anyone left who would like to speak against this application? Okay. Hearing none, I'd like a motion that we go.
Could we go back to the applicant a little bit?
Did you want to come? Did you want him to come back?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please come to the podium again?
Mr. Atkins, I know you live not too far away. I know you currently drive by the property regularly. One of the things, and maybe I'm just misremembering if it's in the application, one of the things we see in some of these applications that there are electronic locks, there are video cameras on the exterior of the building, there are noise monitors where if it gets too loud, you get an alert on your phone or that kind of thing. Have you looked into any of those systems or devices that might help you police against, unruly tenants, so to speak?
Yes. So, I mean, it is an electronic keypad for the door entry, but, I'll have cameras on, after seeing this, I'll get the cameras on the front and the back. Okay.
Jeff, you have anything else?
You said a 3-night minimum.
Yes.
Do you have a maximum?
No, not at this time. I mean, my wife's, it's locked out from Monday through Thursday and the weekend that our caregiver's there. So she's like, we didn't get this place to run as a business. We're going to spend the night there one night. So she spends the night, I go golf, I spend a night with him. She goes out with the girls, and then one weekend a month we do whatever we want. And then, so really we are talking about 3-4 day rentals.
Do you allow pets in your rental?
No. What he's referring to was my family, and someone was listing their house and they brought their dogs over for the backyard because it's fenced in and they were showing their house.
Okay.
Any further questions from the board? Anything else you'd like to address?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Is there anyone who would like to start the discussion? Well, I will then, okay? These cases have become difficult for us as a appeal board, and I understand the difficulty on both sides of the issue, okay? But at the end of the day, we have a zoning resolution, and our responsibility is to say they meet that standard or they don't meet that standard, and if they don't meet that standard, are we going to give them a variance to that standard? One of the things was we talked about was occupancy. Since there is no occupancy standard in the resolution, I don't see how we address that, in the appeal, okay?
I don't know that we do need to address, and sorry for interrupting, but
Yeah.
I think the county health or the
Right.
building board, they have some sort of rules that
Right.
that govern that. So that, in my opinion, that's out of our purview.
In his testimony, the owner said that he has distributed, the question on the form, and he said he has distributed to the neighbors the information. So I think we've addressed that.
And I would question on that too. It states 200-foot radius, and just
Yeah.
make sure that it is an actual 200-foot radius, including the, people behind, all around. So any point touching
Right.
the house,
Okay.
200 feet from that.
The fence has been addressed, and if we do a resolution, we just state, we would add that to the fact that it has to be adjusted within a 60-day time frame or something else like that, okay? Other than that, without actually putting the tape on, I know the parking of the cars in front, but you go down any typical Anderson Township neighborhood, and you will see 2 cars parked in the garage in front of a house. So in that case, I don't have an issue with that, In fact, one of these actual cases, I can't remember which one it was, that was one of the issue. And I just drove down the street, and almost every house on the street had 2 cars parked in the driveway. So I'm not concerned with that as it relates to this. How about someone else's thoughts?
I'm fine with that. Beyond that, I think that the owner has a bunch of rules that make sense. So I think that he's gonna be involved and make sure that the neighborhood doesn't see any negative impact from the weekend rentals.
Steve, you look like you got some thoughts.
Oh, I've been thinking about this long and hard, and I think my voting record on this is I'm not a big fan of them because I do believe that instead of being a residential use, that we're allowing a business use to come in, and I think we're changing the residential fabric of the street. I was in agreement with part of what you were saying there, Mr. Shekels, regarding we've got a zoning ordinance that allows this. And I can go with that until we then start talking about if the zoning resolution says no parking within the front yard setback, that we can't cherry pick, well, it's okay for this, but it isn't okay for that. So I'm trying to get my bead on what we're talking about, of something that I'm not a big fan of at all. I look to my neighbors to either side of me for support, for oversight, for safety, for a number of things. I do happen to have, and I've talked about this before, a long-term rental across the street. The guys beforehand didn't really add anything to the neighborhood. Left a bunch of trash on the front yard when they moved out. And fortunately, we have a nice young lady living there now. Everybody's met her. She put up her Christmas lights over the weekend, and I think she's really attempting to assimilate into the neighborhood. So I'm really mixed on this. The public right-of-way where anybody can be is fine with me. My front yard, once you get up to my front porch, that's going to be a semi-public area. Not everybody is allowed up on my porch, except for people, deliveries or whatever. And as you get around to my backyard's pretty much private area. And when I say that we're changing the fabric of the neighborhood, that's what happens to the people living next door, is that area back in the rear yard is no longer private. So we're changing. what I continue to say, the fabric of it. I understand, and I go back to the point that you made, which is we have a zoning resolution, and do we abide by the request, which is to grant a conditional use request based on our zoning resolution, and do we support it and abide by it? So AKA the parking, everybody has parking, but the zoning says no parking within the front yard. So I'm still trying to grapple with the fact that we have something we should support and yet not modify it, and that a fact that it's changing the neighborhood, which I think is one of our characteristics when it comes to variance requests, that it doesn't change the essential character of the neighborhood, and I think we are doing that right here. The final thing I have about the fence is the fence encroaches 2 feet, so what? I just let the fence be the fence. We don't have to get somebody back out there to, I would grant the variance.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have a request for that, so we can't just create one. You know, if we choose to not address it, then that's something else. And if the township goes out and says, get a variance, or then they'll come back to us and say, apply for a variance. We don't have to address that because it's not in front of us as a part of the motion. Or if we address it that way. Paul?
I kind of echo your sentiments.
Okay. Jeff?
Can you restate what you heard?
No, I cannot.
I'm sorry, whose sentiments are you echoing? I didn't, I was looking down, I didn't.
Paul's. That's,
Paul's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, sorry. You're asking me to repeat word for word what you said.
No, I wasn't.
These are difficult cases, in part because there has been 4 times now an impassioned argument from a member of the board who I think has good judgment overall and personal experience with something like this. And that makes it much harder for me to evaluate some of these things because I respect Steve's judgment so much.
Thank you.
At the same time, I tend to agree with Paul that the Board of Trustees has said, you know, we're going to encourage diverse types of housing, including short-term rentals in our neighborhoods, provided these other conditions are met. And so whether that's a policy I would have chosen or any of us would have chosen is kind of beside the point, I think. Though I guess I should also disclose that if I were a trustee, you know, that is something that I would tend to support. I think that said, the trustees could do some things to make our job easier, including, for example, rather than making a permanent conditional use tied to a property, they could make a periodic license tied to a property and an operator. You know, if we grant this and Mr. Atkins sells it tomorrow, it may look very different. Now, if they don't comply with the conditions, the conditional use permit would be revoked. But maybe there are other paradigms that would serve the township better.
I think that's a great idea, Jeff, in terms of the condition would expire if the owner sells the property, or every 2 years or so, he would have to come in and show in good faith that he's still compliant with all these.
I think those would be better systems than the one we have, but it's not the system we have
Yeah, it is the
today.
system we have. It isn't the system we have, but I think
Yeah.
that would improve this. But we can't judge on what we wish.
Right.
You can only judge on what you have.
Yeah, right. I think the applicant's plan for the property obviously is understandable. You know, they want to move their son in there. That's great. I don't know that the applicant specifically says we're not going to let it out Monday through Thursday. That's their plan right now. That's how they're using it right now. That's not necessarily a condition that they've proposed. I don't know if it's one we could or should impose. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if the rental were only as described in the testimony, it seems like it presents less of a risk than, if it were restricted to that rather than it aspired to that, I think. Though I could see other arguments for it too. We've heard some mixed testimony from the neighborhood. We've got two folks across the street, one to the left, one to the right. One's generally in favor, one is opposed. On the other ones, we've had, I think, a lot more specific testimony about specific things that have already gone wrong at properties. We don't have that here. But we also don't have, 10 neighbors coming out in support. Something else makes our job a little bit harder. I think at the end of the day, I'm in favor of it. I think the spirit and intent would be served by granting the conditional use. Public services are not an issue, I don't think. The township, I think it is consistent with the adopted township plans. Again, we don't make township policy, we're just charged with trying to enforce it. The parking, this is maybe a couple months in a row, I think we've talked about what does this really mean in the short-term rental resolution. And as Paul said, his understanding is that the parking area restriction was intended to prevent the development of parking lots in residential neighborhoods. I think that's probably correct. And so to the extent we need to grant a variance to, say, park in the driveway or the garage, I think it's appropriate for the neighborhood. I mean, you can see from the aerial views that other neighbors are parked in and around that setback. That was what I saw when I drove it. So I either that is compliant or it's a variance I would support.
And I would support that as well. If we have to do that to protect the interest of the neighborhood, do we just say parking is restricted to the driveway area only? Because I think that was, again, what they were looking for when they wrote that.
Right. So that's F and H in the specific criteria. I don't know if that's I or L, I guess. That must be L. It's L. L. L is talking about measures taken to minimize the impact of potential nuisances. Yeah. So they've distributed contact information to neighbors. I think we should encourage, if not require them to distribute to everyone on the street.
Yeah, and I would support that in terms of a general, but I'm not going to ask him to come back with a list of names of everybody he dropped in the mailbox.
No, I don't think I would either. But this is one of the things I asked the applicant about is cameras or keypads or that sort of thing. I think these are the types of measures that should be taken. He said he plans to install those, so I think he's probably met that condition. I think if the board wants to require something specific or wants to inquire further from him, we could reopen the public hearing and maybe hear more about that if it didn't satisfy any of the board. But I think he's in compliance with that. M is exterior alterations that depart from residential character. It doesn't seem like that's an issue at all. There's no lighting issue in S. I don't see a problem with that. V gets back to kind of it's a compliment to L about alerting neighbors and so on. I think that seems compliant. Meals, that's compliant. Emergency response plan, I guess, is compliant. So it really all comes back to, is this going to have an adverse effect on the neighborhood? I think with the limited duration and the limited availability, and given the other things I know about the neighborhood, about the applicant, about their distance, they live over by Turpin. Their connections to the neighborhood, the entire family lives there, parents live there, his brother operates the racket club down the street. This applicant, more than this application, makes me think that there's a low risk of an adverse effect on the neighborhood. But again, he could sell tomorrow,
Yeah.
and then there may be a problem.
Right.
But again, I want to say, I hear the concerns of the witness who just left, who's across the street. I'm blanking on his name. I wrote it down somewhere. And Steve's concerns. These are significant concerns, and we shouldn't discount them. And I think it's a close call for me, even with a strong applicant like Mr. Atkins. But I think on balance, I'm in favor of granting the conditional use certificate and, to the extent necessary, permitting a variance to allow front yard parking, or front, no, not
Right.
not
I
yard.
know. On
Driveway.
the
In the
driveway
driveway
only.
parking.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
right, driveway or garage only.
Yes.
So that's where I land on that. I could be swayed if anyone wants to try to take another shot at it. I do think these are close calls in this type of neighborhood, on this type of street.
I would support with some conditions, as we've discussed here in this discussion. I think going forward, though, referring back to our earlier discussion, what the board, not our board, but zoning could do to make this process more acceptable to the general public, because once we approve this, he sells it tomorrow, and then he sells it 3 days later to somebody else, and he sells it 4 days. You understand that we're giving to the property, not the owner, and that's why. And hearing the same concerns come up each time, each one of these cases about what's going to happen here, I think it's some serious consideration, and it's not my call to make this, should be given to some amendment to the resolution to include either like a 2-year time frame and a renewal process and that would be renewed based on complaints, or when the property transfers, this goes away and the new property owner would have to come back in.
So we can
That's a
take-
legal question. We
Right, I was
can't
going to
answer.
say, we can take that to our township attorney. We
Yeah.
do have some limitations as a township versus a city, what a city would have, so we can have our township attorney look at that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I really don't, I understand Steve, you're just in an awful situation in your neighborhood. I know you've expressed it before, and it's sort of, that would be in the back of my mind every time one of these comes to place too. Fortunately, I've not had that situation in my neighborhood or with my neighbors, but it would definitely tint how I would feel about it. But I will support this with the conditions we've talked about.
Mr. Dury, what's the process by review of the short-term rental part of zoning so that I know, granting this, that we understand we need to become more definitive with the resolution or whatever? What is that? How do we proceed with that?
So I'll take your notes tonight, and it's really the trustees initiate any text amendments, but we can take that to them to discuss with them to see if they want us to pursue changes with the zoning resolution. If they choose to initiate a text amendment, then it goes through the whole process of going through the zoning commission. Well, it goes to regional planning, goes to the zoning commission, and then goes to the trustees for final approval.
Okay.
But we have started doing some research to see what other communities are doing. When the text was adopted back in 2020, we did the same thing. We went to surrounding communities. We borrowed language from them. We didn't really recreate their will.
I know Milford's been struggling with it.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
we can certainly relook at this. But again, it doesn't impact the application tonight.
And anyone else have anything?
I
new
just
that-
want to make sure that, that if we're going to have a process here tonight, that we understand what our process could be moving forward. you know, with revision.
Again, the
with-
process tonight isn't going to change. And
It won't change until the zoning regulation
Correct.
actually
Yes,
changes.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask about enforcement? I mean, it's my understanding that if they fall out of compliance with any of the requirements of the resolution, you issue a citation, and there's an enforcement process. It's complaint-based usually, but, so if, for example, you know, like specific criteria on S, lighting has to be directed away. If he installs lighting like shining into his neighbor's windows, there will be a complaint, you'll enforce that, and you go through the typical enforcement process, which will either result in an injunction requiring compliance or a revocation of the conditional use permit, is that right?
It could go either way, correct.
Okay.
Our normal enforcement procedure is sending a violation letter. If there's not voluntary compliance, the process is to go to Hamilton County Housing Court for a zoning violation. We can't cite because we're a township.
Right.
But with this being a conditional use, the other option would be to bring it back before the Board of Zoning Appeals for a revocation of their conditional use.
So if something goes wrong, this could be back in front of us at some
Correct.
point in the future. In other words, I'm saying this mostly to the board, but I guess a little bit to the applicant, mostly to the board. If something, you know, if we grant it today, doesn't mean it's there forever if it goes wrong.
Right.
Right?
If-
So,
If next week he's got 6 cars parked in the driveway and they're partying until 4 in the morning, somebody's gonna issue a complaint and that process will go
and
through.
it could come back this way. Okay. I mean, and that, you know, I knew that, but hearing that again gives me a little more comfort that it's not, we're not just, you know, throwing it all to the wind here.
Is there anyone who has anything additional to add? Is there a resolution?
Mr. Chair, regarding case number 32-2022 BZA, I move, this is for a conditional use for a short-term rental, 7492 Tower View Lane. I move that we grant the conditional use. There's a bunch here. First off, so conditions. The first condition being that parking is allowed within the garage and on the driveway. Help me, guys, here as far as
What kind of? are you
any
looking-
other, well, I mean, I just.
Well, we did talk about notice of distribution that the owner
Right,
should confirm that he has distributed the notices in the approximate 200-foot radius
Yes,
area.
Yes. So that there's confirmation that that's been done.
Yes, he will confirm to staff
Yes.
that that has been done.
And cameras being located on the exterior. I'm not quite sure we can say anything about the things that Mr. Nye suggested regarding noise or whatnot. Maybe we can encourage.
Well, we can't regulate that
Yeah.
beyond what's in the regulation.
Right. Was there anything else that,
Fence, did you want anything about the fence?
Did you want to?
well, no, I was,
Are you stating,
Staff requested that, though, and
Steve, were you stating that you want a front and rear camera on the
well,
property?
in accordance with the testimony of the appellant.
Well, then, is that how you want that worded in there? In the-
Yeah.
Okay. You got that?
Staff has an additional recommended condition that the property remain locally owned, or if not locally owned, locally managed.
Not locally managed, not owned.
Either locally owned or
Well, they
locally
have
managed.
a-
Locally owned or locally managed.
They have the either or here, and yes, thank you for that, Mr. Nye. And then I think if we want to deal with the fence, that we can either deal with that tonight or,
Well, we don't have anything formal on here, and it's the staff recommendation is how I would look at that. Do we want to accept the staff recommendation or just ignore it? That's our two options. We don't even have to say anything about it if we don't want to.
If we ignore it, that's not the same as permitting it.
Right.
Right. The applicant did not request a variance for the fence, and they've
Correct.
stated testimony tonight that they plan to relocate it to be in compliance.
Yeah.
So I don't
Okay.
think the board needs to take action on the
Okay,
fence.
I think I'm done.
So do you want that included, is what you're telling us, Paul? You think that should be included?
No, I don't think the
No.
board needs to take action on the fence.
Okay, thank you. That's what I'm trying to clarify,
Right.
whether you, okay. Is your motion complete, Steve?
Unless,
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Did he finish the motion?
Oh,
said
I
it
thought he
last.
did. I thought he said he did. That's, I'm sorry.
no, I was looking for friendly amendments, and if there are none, then we're done.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Will you read the roll?
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Contact the staff. They'll work to get you the certificate and proceed on that basis. Thank you. Okay. Okay, well, you read the staff.
Reopen the executive.
Oh, we gotta come out. I keep forgetting that. I get us in, I just can't remember. Would you like to motion, Paul?
Motion made.
Second?
Second.
Will you call the roll?
How about you were second?
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Will you read the staff report for case 33-2022?
Yes. Case 33-2022, BZA, the applicant is Andrew and Carissa Crawford, property owners, 7071 Hunley Road, zoned A-2 as residence. The applicant is requesting a conditional use request to allow a short-term rental facility for the property located at 7071 Hunley Road per Article 5.4L15 of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. The definition of a short-term rentals is as follows: the rental of a primary residences or portion thereof for a period of less than 30 nights for which the guest compensates a hosting platform owner or leasee of the unit. The history of the property. After a fire at the original non-conforming house, a zoning certificate was issued for repair of residence as granted through case 19-2011 BZA, October 6, 2011. Ultimately, these repairs were not made and the house was removed. In 2017, a zoning certificate was issued for a new single-family residence with a front yard setback of 16.3 feet, where 40 feet is required, granted with case 32-2015 BZA, December 3rd, 2015, with three conditions. Construction shall be started within 1 year and completed within 3 years of the date of the decision. Substantial conformance with the previous home's footprint on plans dated November 13th, 2015 is required. Compliant with the main rectangular footprint. Number 3, future access to the site shall be reviewed and approved by the Hamilton County engineer. In March 2020, the current property owner purchased the property. The property owner has also registered the property with Hamilton County for residential rental in March of 2020. On October 14th, 2022, the township received a call from Andrew Crawford, property owner, asking about how to obtain a short-term rental zoning certificate. He was given information on how to apply for the Board of Zoning Appeals. No complaint was received about this property regarding the active or nuisance short-term rental. In April 2020, the Anderson Township Board of Trustees adopted text amendments to the zoning resolution which made short-term rentals a conditional use in single-family residence zoning districts. As of right now, there have been 4 cases seen. All 4 have been approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. This will be the 5th case of this year. This is an aerial map of the location. Topography map. Just a larger, more context of the aerial map of the property. These are photos of the structure on the property. Conditional use findings. Spirit and intent, the proposed use development would comply with the spirit and intention of the zoning resolution and with district purposes by meeting the conditional use standards. No adverse effect. The proposed short-term rental would not have an adverse effect upon adjacent property or public health, safety, and general welfare. The applicant has indicated that the property has one exterior camera triggered by motion with DVR recall monitoring. The applicants live in Anderson Township, a 10-minute drive away. Protection of public services. The proposed short-term rental will respect natural, scenic, and historic features of significant public interest. The applicant has not changed the exterior of the existing single-family residence. The applicants have indicated that landscaping, lawn, and surrounding areas will be maintained by a professional landscaping company. Consistent with adopted township plans, the proposed short-term rental is consistent with the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Its short-term rental is compliant with the height and setback requirements for this property. The conditional use is in accordance with the following areas of the township's comprehensive plan. The project is consistent with the following goal and initiative of the housing chapter in the 2022 comprehensive plan, which states Anderson Township is home to diverse housing options to meet changing demographics and market demands. Encourage the development and redevelopment of a variety of housing styles and densities in appropriate areas of the township. The property is designated for a single-family residential use on the future land use map. Staff feels that the proposed short-term rental is consistent with this use classification. As specific criteria, parking shall not be permitted in the area defined as the front yard setback of existing zone district. That's compliant. The vehicular use shall be located and designed so as to minimize the impact on the neighborhood. Compliance. The applicants have listed in the short-term rental contracts and websites that there can only be 2 cars in the driveway with no additional parking available. Measures shall be taken to minimize the impact of potential nuisances such as noise, odor, vibration, and dust on adjacent properties. Compliant. The applicant has established quiet hours, no parties, events, no smoking, drug use, all listed within the contract that the guest must agree to when booking the property. There is also an electronic locking system to enter the home and cameras that send notifications to property owners. Mr. and Mrs. Crawford own the neighborhood west and east parcels, which are vacant land with over 800 feet of frontage on Hunley Road in total. To the northwest and east of the property is township green space. They have a few immediate neighbors that have visibility of the property due to steep topography, in the foliage to the south and green space to the northwest and east. No exterior alteration of existing structure shall be made that depart from the residential character of the building. All new structures shall be compatible in residential design with the surrounding neighborhood. However, any improvement required by code or necessitated by licensing agreements shall not be deemed incompatible. Compliant. No proposed changes to the existing structure other than a fresh coat of paint when needed. The property owners will be required to remove gravel and paved driveway with hard, dust-free surface. All exterior lighting shall be directed away from adjacent residential properties. Compliant. No changes to lighting proposed. The applicant shall provide a plan indicating the manner in which the facility will maintain contact with neighborhood residents along the structured procedure whereby residents along with a structured procedure whereby residents' grievances may be filed with the township and resolved by the facility. Compliant. Contact information has been distributed to surrounding neighbors and information on how to file grievances with the township. Meals. Meals shall be served only to guests or residents of the facility and not to the general public. Compliant. An emergency response plan shall be submitted detailing safety measures and response procedures. Compliant. An emergency plan is provided with emergency information. The property is equipped with fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, and carbon monoxide detectors. Staff recommendation. If approved, the staff recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals applies the condition that the property either be locally owned or have a local property manager to comply with conditions L and V. In addition, that the driveway be paved with a hard, dust-free surface as required by the Anderson Township zoning resolution.
Any questions from the board?
I do have a question. Can you show me the overhead map again and then where the front yard would be?
What are you looking to see, Paul?
Front yard.
Okay.
So
Can you-
this one's a little unique because the board already granted a variance for the house to be constructed where it is. So the house currently doesn't meet a normal front yard setback in that zoning district, which is A2. And again, with the staff really feels like the intent of that requirement is not to create a parking area, parking pad, parking lot in a front yard setback. But yes, technically, the whole house is in what would normally be a front yard setback in that zoning district.
Yeah, that was my question. Since parking is, no parking in the front yard setback.
No parking on Croft Pike either?
Yes.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, can you go to the wide topographical map? So which ones are the township green? So 7019 and 7077 are owned by the same, yeah, those are common ownership. But then which ones are green space then? Oh, the green ones. Look at that.
The green ones.
And then this
Okay.
strip right here,
Yeah, I didn't appreciate that. Okay.
here, and here.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Any other questions? Is the applicant or the applicant's representative here? Please come to the podium, speak your name, address, and your affiliation.
Andrew Crawford, 7071 Hunley Road. I'm the owner, along with my wife. We've owned this property since 2020. It has been a long-term rental since with a single tenant, and they have moved out since in September, hence our transition to a short-term rental. Intent of the property is to house our in-laws from Florida periodically throughout the year, intermittently instead of returning to a long-term rental again, which is registered with the county, has noted in 2020. We intend to house our in-laws intermittently and use it as a short-term rental in between.
Anything else you'd like to present?
No, that's about it. It's maintained professionally. We manage the property ourselves. We are experienced property managers. We have other rental properties as well.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Where do you live?
Live on 8524 St. Ives Place, Anderson Township.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Lauren, for the help as well. Appreciate it.
Anyone else like to speak in support? Is there anyone here who would like to speak against this bill? Hearing none, I'd like a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Will you call the roll?
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shuckles?
Aye. I'll start because I actually called Sarah about this week because I asked her, 'cause I go by there, I live up in a nearby subdivision. I said, that gravel driveway's been there forever from when the house was. Can you check the plans and see if it was required to be a paved service? And she got back to me and said yes, and it appears that whenever it was built, no one in the permitting process or the final building inspector said anything about it, because I was curious as to why it got to be gravel for all that. That said, I don't think there's a requirement here, since he's only allowing 2 cars, that he have a full 18-foot driveway across there, that I would like to see just, a normal driveway, a little wider than a single-car driveway, be my, thoughts on this. The other thing, since I am in the construction business, this time of year, the asphalt plants could close at any time. I just finished an asphalt project at one of my projects down in Lawrenceburg, and we were pushing the envelope with the plant down there. So I'd like to see in the resolution that we extend that, if you want to extend it out till next August or September. And the reason I'm saying that, because April and May, the prices go crazy because everybody wants asphalt and they know the demand. Okay, so I would think to benefit the property owner, we need to give them a little flexibility as terms of when they need to install that asphalt or concrete surface. Anybody else's thoughts?
Short-term rentals have been difficult for us. This one is unique amongst the applications we've seen, is in that there is very little neighborhood. There's green space, there's vacant lots, there's a very steep hill to the south, I guess. There is a street opposite to the north, but the houses are on the other side of the green space. Other than that one, 7076, that's the only one that you might consider a neighbor, really, I think. So I'm not particularly worried about the adverse effect on the neighborhood on this one. So I think otherwise they are, they satisfy the general considerations, they meet the specific criteria, and so I'd be in favor of it. You mentioned how wide the driveway needs to be. I'm not sure that's ours to say. I think that,
Is it, but if you look at it, the driveway at the house is the whole width,
it is very wide.
It's the whole width
Yeah,
of the thing.
I
don't think we need to put any undue burden on them to give a double driveway all the way up.
I couldn't care less how wide the driveway is. I don't want to touch that.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay, all right. Then we're on the same page, and I would grant it subject to staff's recommended conditions.
Steve?
I'm in agreement. This is what I think is a short-term rental, because I think maybe in one of our earlier cases, you asked me, so when do we grant it?
If not here, where? Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm reminded of my trip to Tropic, Utah in October, which had a very similar Airbnb. 2 buildings on the property that were rented, and I think the nearest building was a commercial restaurant about 50 yards away, and then I can't even tell you where the next house was. I think it's very appropriate in this location, and I would be in favor of granting it. So that was my answer to your question a couple of months ago.
You still can't turn in an expense report for going to Utah. Paul?
I'm in agreement.
John, you good? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, regarding case number 33-2022 BZA, for a short-term rental at 7071 Hunley Road, I move that we grant the conditional use to allow the short-term rental. Staff had, let's see, you were talking about paving. We got a.
Yeah, they should just pave the driving area to sufficient for 2 cars.
Yep. But there was a time element.
Yeah, I would extend that to like September of next year. That gives them plenty of time to not be This very likely within the next 2 weeks, the asphalt plants are gonna shut down, and they're gonna pay a very large premium to get it done in 2 weeks, okay? So in the month of April, when they open, typically prices are a lot higher than they are as you go through the summer. So sometime in that frame of August, September, go ahead and include, pick your month.
By Labor Day.
Perfect.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
Yeah, the conditions.
It's staff's
Yeah.
Condition of the drive.
local ownership or management as well.
Local ownership management.
Yep. I agree with those friendly amendments.
Did someone second that?
Second.
Okay, will you call the roll?
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Watch this, guys. Is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Yeah.
Second.
There was a
Okay.
couple down
Will you
there.
call the roll?
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Thank you. Get in touch with the department, and they'll let you know when your certificate is ready.
Thank you very much.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
We had 33 cases this year. We only had 25 last year. We
Everybody,
had,
everybody just wants to meet with us.
we had 18 the year before and 17 the year before that.
COVID.
Only some of those were COVID years. 17 in 2019. We had 33 this year, twice as many. Isn't that wild?
The virtual meetings, those were interesting.
Those were fun.
Technical issues that we
Poor,
had
poor John's internet was never working.
when we were doing the COVID virtual hearings.
We would see your face and then it would just freeze, and we wouldn't know if you were just sitting really still, because it didn't go black. It didn't,
Just froze up.
scramble or anything. It just froze.
It's Ultra Fiber, Cincinnati Bell.
I spent a lot of time on the phone with them today.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'm happy with their internet service. But I don't know if anybody.
Here's the
else
reality.
would be any
Doesn't matter
better.
who it is. You're
Yeah,
not gonna
take your
be happy with
pick.
it.
Who do you want to be unhappy with, John?
Spectrum just raised my rates.
I like to stay
They
with
kept it for a while at 75, now they bumped it up to 80.
Is Ultra Fiber
Of
still
course,
local?
Cincinnati Bell won't put fiber
They
in
changed their
my
name.
house. It's like literally across the street, they ran it, but they won't run it to like 3-4 houses on the other street. It's too much construction.
But their headquarters in Cincinnati is the worst, which makes them local.
I think that's true. It's not like they can't even pitch them against each other.
See, Fifth Third's the only
That's
local
rough.
bank.
Yeah, that's rough.
Came, start in Cincinnati, it's still in Cincinnati. She sits on, economic development committee.
She's a real estate agent too.
Yeah.
B cells.
So, I guess we're done.
Well, we gotta.
Oh, that's right,
not
that's
yet,
right.
John.
Review and journalize.
We technically don't need you if you really have to leave.
Well, no, I don't, but
But if anybody calls me at 11 o'clock and say, "Are you still in a meeting?" I'm.
I sit on the economic development committee.
Do you? What kinds of economic development things do you do?
Well, there's always discussion around trying to bring new business to town.
Yeah.
We're looking to try and get a hotel in the town.
Like where Anderson High School is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently they're tabling
Not
the
necessarily
merger
there.
plan.
Don't
But,
get me started.
Yeah, there or right, right next.
What grades are
door.
your kids in?
We're down, actually, across
They're
from Belterra.
junior and seniors.
Right there.
They're probably safe from whatever happens at this point in that respect.
Yeah, of course, my wife, she subs though, she subs, she flows, but sometimes Claremont County,
Oh,
but
yeah?
she's done Anderson and Turpin. Yeah, I don't know how they would
You good?
Yeah,
merge the
looking
two, I mean, there's not,
Sites.
Well, I know a lot
about it. None of it's good.
so are they still considering it, or did they actually table it?
They're not
Development.
recommending it this time.
That's right.
Whatever that is.
We'll see.
And hope they get the levy passed.
Boy, they got a lot of work to do if they want to do that.
Are we ready to go?
Ready?
Okay. All right. Which were we scrolling today, up or down?
Through, yeah.
All right. All right.
Why?
Okay, you can move it.
Okay, wait, what is the flashing icon in the bottom there?
For us, that it blows up the whole system.
Oh, yeah, it's.
I gotta hide that, it's giving me some anxiety here.
Okay, we can scroll.
Actually, can you scroll up a little bit, please?
Go back?
Yeah, go back. Yeah. A little higher, please. A little bit more.
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
There we go.
13-year-old.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. I just wanted to double check the.
He's now 38. And he has Down syndrome and autism. So,
I'm good.
You get some sympathy.
Yeah, I'm good.
sort of
Okay.
a little bit. And autism's actually impacting him more than the Down syndrome.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good.
That kind of stuff.
Looks good to me.
Is there a
Mr. Chair, regarding case 31-2022 BZA, I move that we approve and journal our decision.
is there a second?
Second the motion.
Will you call the roll?
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Yes.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
I,
One of us always has to be.
Yes.
I couldn't think of what to say.
Couldn't bring yourself to do it, right?
It was too quick a response.
Affirm.
Affirm. I like that.
Affirmative.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, we can move.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Can we go back to 3 for a second? The last sentence says the fence will need to be brought into compliance. Let's reword that. The applicant has represented they will bring the fence into compliance.
Yeah,
I forget how long he said, but
because we don't really have the authority to do the fencing, I don't think.
The applicant is indicated. Second last line. No,
nope,
go down
wrong
one.
line. Nope.
Nope, go to
Go
the
down.
second last line, go down
Or
one.
as Paul would say, up.
Keep going up slightly to your right. No, it says the fence will. Okay, we want to put the applicant has indicated that. The fence, okay. Will be brought.
You strike need to
Yeah, just strike the need.
into.
Oh.
What'd you do?
We don't do this twice. guys. Will be brought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Good.
In the, where it says, and staff feels that the pro short-term rental is consistent with use, why don't we say, and, let's strike, staff feels that, because this is our conclusion, not staff's conclusion, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Strike, staff feels that.
Yeah. Yeah, just strike straps. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we want to address the parking here, or are we going to address it later, where we? Okay, cool.
Okay. I'm good.
Wait a minute, go right there. We talk about the fence. Why don't we just take that fence out, since we've already addressed it?
Yeah, however, there's a fence.
Yep.
Take
Yep.
that whole sentence out.
Take that out.
Just, no, not that, yeah. No, up one. There we go. That's it. Strike it.
On V, we need to say something that the appellant
We'll confirm to staff.
will, yeah, that's fine. The appellant will,
Confirm to staff that,
contact information.
yeah,
Yeah.
Did we want to include that as a condition instead?
no.
It is a condition?
Oh, okay. Well, we're just doubling it up on them.
All right.
Okay. Okay, you can move.
to nitpick, but shouldn't that be parking to be
All right.
located on the driveway?
Oh,
Parking to be located,
this is apparently a very hotly contested regionalism. Some people say in a driveway, some people say on a driveway. And which one you say tells a lot about where you are and how you grew up, apparently. It's like, are you standing in a line or are
Do
you
you park, do
standing
you
on
just
a line?
actually go into the driveway? Or do you
If I'm
go
standing
onto
in
the
a line,
driveway?
I'll
Because if
go
you go into the driveway's here, you're going
In New York, you
into
can
it.
only do one, apparently.
I would say on the driveway.
All of
On
which is
the
to say, I
driveway.
couldn't care less which.
On the driveway.
In the line, I'm in the line.
In the line, standing on the
On the
line.
yeah. Standing-
oh, Mr. Chair, regarding case 32-2022 BZA, I move that we approve and journal our decision.
The second,
Second the motion.
will you call the roll?
We were kind of,
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Cyan?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shuckles?
Yes.
For what it's worth, I would have said in the driveway. I don't know.
I want to see how you do that.
Get
Because
inside the driveway.
You have a driveway and you're on it.
Okay,
in
let's
No,
get this
you're-
other one
You're like
done.
within the boundaries of it.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
now
it's
I
within the boundaries of
understand.
the airspace of the driveway.
But it
goes to
levitates, so it's
infinity.
not on it.
You can park it
So you-
10 or 10,000 feet up as long as you're
So it's the airspace of the driveway.
all the way to the heavens, to the core of the earth.
I'm good.
Yep.
I'm good.
Yep. We make the same staff feels as though change. Just
Yeah.
strike staff feels as though.
Staff has the feelies.
Feels that.
No, I want to strike the reference to the staff
Oh, okay.
because this is the board's conclusion.
Oh, okay, the board feels.
Just
Just the proposed.
the proposed short-term rental is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
By gosh.
Okay, can I make another complaint? In H.
No.
2, parentheses 2,
Yeah.
does anybody not know what TWO means? Do we need to clarify it in the parentheses?
You have this conversation every
Yes,
time
we've
we
talked
see
about this before, and here we are doing it again.
Cut to the,
I know that's how you do it. It's
come to
stupid.
come to the next township meeting and complain.
I will.
Well, I don't know what the problem.
Go ahead.
It's redundant.
Don't mind me.
But it's just being introduced in two different fashions.
Why? One will do.
That's true.
Yeah.
What happened to there? We got blown up all of a sudden.
Don't worry about it. It's
Okay.
fine.
All right. Okay, yeah, all right. Now, do we want to put the condition, or did you put the condition on the end of it for the time frame? Okay. All right, I'm good.
Okay. Good.
Okay, keeps rolling, okay. All right. Is there a motion?
Do we want to put by the end of September 23 or by?
Oh, take your pick. I don't really care. You want to do it September 1? We do September 1, or we do September 30th?
Is it important to you guys?
Somebody step up.
If the attorney feels that you need to put by the end, I think you go with what the attorney says.
Okay. Put by September 2023. Okay, that means August 31st for those of you who are calendar impaired.
Huh?
Oh, really?
September 30th. Put 30th. September 30th. Unless you want to do September 31st.
2020.
Didn't we do that once?
Is this number
Okay.
33? Mr.
Three,
Chair,
yeah.
regarding case 33-2022 BZA, I move that we approve and journal our decision.
Second the motion.
Will you call the roll?
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second? Will you call the roll?
Aye.
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 Shekels?
I have not used this all year, and I'm not going to do it now.